Well, there it is, folks. Joe Biden has dropped out of the 2024 presidential race. And I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. The show starts now. So, Joseph Robinette Biden officially dropped out of the race yesterday on his favorite day of all, no less, issuing this written statement that read as most of us predicted it would. Could someone please do a welfare check on that little twerp Harry Sisson? I hope he's still getting paid, poor kid. But the insurrection on Joe's candidacy was successful, and I hate to toot my own horn here, but toot, 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 toot. If you follow California Governor Greasy Gavin on Twitter, you know he's been doing the most. Gavin, tell me you're running in 2024 without telling me you're running in 2024. I've said it because I've maintained it since January. I don't think Joe Biden is going to be their nominee. I think it's going to be Gavin Newsom. Democrats would have finally been free and clear to kick the big guy Brandon to the curb, and then bam, just like that, Gavin Newsom becomes the Democrat nominee. I still maintain, though, that Gavin Newsom is going to be the nominee, so I'm still holding on to that, just for the record. Joe Biden will not be the Democratic nominee on the ballot in November. Do you really think the Democrats are going to risk another Donald Trump presidency by putting up a human vegetable that 86% of Americans, including the vast majority of Democrats, don't approve of or want on that ballot? No.
Number one question we have asked you on this program for the better part of 2 to 3 years is, will Joe Biden be the nominee come November? So, in light of last night, will Joe Biden be the nominee come November?
Oh, Todd, you know I've been saying this for 2 years now. No, I do not believe Joe will be the nominee.
Rob from New York. Better get a crisp $100 bill out for Tomi Lahren. It looks like you're about to lose another bet. Wait a second. Did I bet anything with Tomi Lahren? What did I bet Tomi Lahren about? Still, Joe's going to stay as the nominee. Trust me, I'm not losing to her.
Tomi, I do have to start with you. I got to tip my hat to you. I mean, you have been the most steadfast of anybody saying he's going to be replaced and it's going to be Gavin Newsom. You've not backed off that position. I would assume after last night, you're more locked in than ever.
More locked in than ever. Never underestimate Democrats. In 2020, they figured out how to get mass mail-in voting in a matter of months due to COVID. They will do what they have to do. Joe is in the way right now. They will move him out of the way. The Democrat Party, they might look like they're fumbling and they're bumbling and they're really worried about getting rid of Joe. They've got a plan in place. They're carefully and strategically planning this out. Never underestimate them. They are cutthroat. And we would be stupid to underestimate what they can do. I don't think they were ever going to go with a Joe Biden on the top of that ticket. I mean, it wasn't that hard to figure out. Come on now. The only two reasons Joe was the nominee back in 2020 were, one, he was the only candidate on that Democratic primary stage that was moderate enough to get elected, and two, he was already cognitively out to lunch and he was easy to control. The Democrat Party used him and exploited his cognitive slippage and Jill's extreme thirst for money and power like a Trojan horse for their far-left extremist agenda. And Joe did everything they asked of him because he was never really in charge. This was always the plan, which is why I warned of this years ago, while most of you started coming around to the idea maybe 25 days ago after that debate. The debate performance was part of the plan too. They knew he'd flub and he'd fail, which is why they planned it for the end of June way earlier than normal. This isn't some haphazard plan that sprang out of a bad debate performance. Come on, Democrats are not dumb. And I'll also repeat this, Kamala will not be the nominee either. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that element wasn't part of Jill Biden's negotiated exit package. I know Joe endorsed her, but he had to do that for optics' sake. I know some of you think they are shoehorned and DEI obligated to pick Kamala, but you're wrong. Democrats don't actually care that much about DEI. They pretend to for social points, but notice they never put it on the ballot. They appoint DEI. They don't elect it. Again, if they thought you'd vote based on DEI, they would have run Kamala or Cory Booker or Pete Buttigieg back in 2020, but they chose Joe and Bernie Sanders a close second. Two old white men. Go figure. This will be an open convention, and Democrats aren't dumb enough to pick Kamala Harris. Now, I hope they are, honestly, but I highly, highly doubt it. So I'll reiterate what I've been saying for literally years. I still believe it'll be Gavin Newsom. Gavin has been feigning loyalty to Joe for years while also running his own shadow campaign in the process. The red state speaking tours, the Fox News Hannity debate with Governor DeSantis, the international trips, the sudden interest in appearing to crack down on crime in California. Oh, it'll be Gavin, all right, and you cannot convince me otherwise to this day. But joining me now to dig into it all is Alex Marlow, Breaking Biden author and Breitbart Editor-in-Chief. Okay, Alex, so I did tell you so. So I want to throw that out there. I told you this was going to happen, but you wrote the book Breaking Biden. Well, Biden has been broken. What do you think?
Well, first of all, congratulations, Tommy. I knew once everything got really hot last week, I'd be hearing from your producers, and they were right on it. So it's clearly keeping track. You deserve huge amounts of credit. And I'll tell you, it's been a good ride for me. When I appointed myself the rights expert on Joe Biden because no one else would do it, literally no one took him seriously other than me, it seemed like, I knew that there was a risk at any moment during the last couple of years that he could drop out. And I had to go out there and tell everyone, wait a second, he might not. Once you get to know him, he hung on for dear life, that man made it until July of his last year. And he's still president, which I'm sure we'll get to that. That's still insane, too. He has no right to be president anymore after that debate performance. It's very clear he should not be in charge of any heavy machinery at all, much less our nuclear forces. So he should be gone from that. I'm sure we'll get to that. But I always knew there was a risk he was going to drop out. But I thought it was very important for people to understand exactly how headstrong he is, how obstinate he could be, and the fact that he really did not want to leave. It was kicking and screaming to get him out. I'm dying to figure out what bag of cash was offered to him. But clearly, after that debate in the last few weeks, the calculus changed that he had to go.
Yeah. So I have a lot of questions, obviously more
Sure.
questions than answers at this point. But I'm going to tell you what I'm really concerned with is that we haven't heard from Joe Biden yet. We haven't seen a picture. We haven't seen a video.
Yeah.
We don't have a speech. We have no visual representation that he dropped out himself. And I know that that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I can't be the only one, and I'm not the only one, who is still wildly curious as to why we haven't seen and heard from Joe Biden at this point. I'm concerned about it. And beyond that, not only the fact that he is still our president and he, is supposedly going to be our president for several more months, I'm just concerned about his physical and mental state, not just as it's been, but as it is right now. And his brother put out a statement yesterday that I thought was concerning, something to the effect of, we want to enjoy the time we have left. And I'm thinking,
right.
Enjoy the time you have left? I can't be the only one that's thinking something is fishy going on behind the scenes here.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, for the sake of the country, what they mean is him being president. And one thing that I learned about Joe Biden during all of my time researching him that is soon to become pretty irrelevant in a few months here. But I did learn that he really did want to be president his whole life. He's coveted the presidency his whole life. He's always wanted this so bad. And I think that was a huge factor to why he hung on as long as he did, is harboring hope that maybe somehow he could eke out another term. It's become very clear he wasn't going to do that. And I think that is a big deal. But he's also the family meal ticket. And his rise through politics has been the only thing that has fed Hunter Biden, Frank Biden, Jim Biden, Valerie Biden, and lesser Bidens also make money off of the Biden family. I write about many of them. And so they're really thinking of it in those terms, that this is the end of a 50-year gravy train, and it's going to go away. What's noteworthy, I think, Tommy, and I think there's a big deal when it comes to when it became clear he's going to have to drop out. That gravy train was going away in January anyway. Now it just goes away 6 months sooner, but he wasn't going to win. There's no way. And I'm always warning people the Democrats could pull it off. They weren't going to pull it off with this guy. They couldn't do it. It was just too lopsided. And when you're looking at these polls coming in last week and Trump's winning blue states by like 7 points, it was becoming very clear they were all going to be on the unemployment line 6 months anyway. So I'm sure there was some negotiated mega bag of cash, but I think they really mean it. They're going to miss this so much much. And if that makes all of you smile at home, how much the Bidens are going to miss this, good, because you should. We should all enjoy that.
Yeah. There's so much I want to dig into here, but I'm going to just go right to the Kamala Harris of it all.
Sure.
So it wasn't immediately obvious with the first statement that Joe Biden put out announcing that he was dropping out of the race, that he was endorsing Kamala Harris. So that was weird. It came after the fact.
Really weird.
So it was like obligatory. Weird. We're still waiting for endorsements from several notable figures, and I have yet to see them unless they're coming out as we speak. And I'm not, obviously on socials to detect that. But as far as we know, the major and key players in the Democrat Party, the power brokers of the Democrat Party that actually have the power, Schumer, Pelosi, Obama, to a lesser extent, Jeffries, to my knowledge, they have not endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for president yet. What does that tell you?
Oh, it's so juicy. And I love it from a content perspective. For a country, I don't know if it makes us any better off, but in terms of someone who runs a website where people follow politics like a spectator sport, I know you guys can relate over there. It really is surreal to watch, because every minute Barack Obama doesn't endorse is a big deal. Every minute any of those names you listed doesn't endorse, it's a big deal. It brings the party, the Democrat Party, closer to that chaotic convention that we're all rooting for at this point. I mean, I want to see every single angle. I want to see all the backbiting. I want to see all the tribalism. That's ideal for us. And every minute that goes on, where there's that uncertainty, where the big players are going to shake out, we get closer to that scenario, which is sort of the dream at this point.
Yeah, it would be, if not for the fact that there's still a possibility, although I think it's slim, that Kamala Harris could be our president. To me, that is the worst case scenario. I think I'd pick about anybody else in the country over Kamala Harris, including Hillary Clinton and Gavin Newsom. I would still pick them above Kamala Harris, because to me, she is just such an embarrassment to me as an American. I don't want her representing me as a woman. I don't want her representing me as an American. I don't want her representing a shoelace. Like, she embarrasses me to such a great extent. We're going to dig into that a little bit more. But the way that I see this going, and I want to know your prediction, because as you know, I've become kind of the Nostradamus of this. I want to make predictions. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they'll be right. Who knows?
Sure, of course.
But I believe that the reason that there's such a rush to endorse Kamala is not to signify unity, but rather to get that as the conversation for the next week or two. But I believe that she's going to flame out, and I believe they're setting her up to fail, as they always have. I think that putting her name out there, it's obligatory, but I think that they're waiting for her to fail in the next couple of weeks. She had to know that this was coming, and the last thing we saw from her before Biden announced, and I put that in quotes, announced, because it was a written statement, she was at an ice cream shop yucking it up with Tyra Banks, eating Cookie Monster ice cream. That doesn't tell me that you're ready to be president or you're ready to vie for the presidency. Today we see her with some BS speech as well, standing in front of honorees, not giving us any kind of moment that would have said, hey, I'm ready to go, America. Still haven't seen it from her. So that tells me it ain't gonna be her.
Okay, so there's so much here that I love, and I want to go back a step, because I didn't get a chance to react to the fact that Biden hasn't said anything yet. And there is a scenario here that I think is the worst case scenario, and it's super weird. Let's just say that it's obviously super weird. I think the worst case scenario is that Biden comes out and he's announced that he's contracted long COVID or perpetual Lyme disease, or one of these things that people get, and he cannot be president. He's got to step down. And that makes Kamala Harris the president. And then she's running as an incumbent. And I think it would be easier for her to unify the various factions, the people who'd already endorsed, the people who don't like her, which are numerous. And it would force President Trump, if they debate, to refer to her as President Harris. It would give the historic nature of her candidacy, even though we know how she got there, and we'll be hearing all about that nonstop for the next month. Not an impressive resume. Makes Joe Biden is a giant compared to Kamala Harris. And still, she would have that legacy that she'd be going off of in the race. That makes her much harder to beat than I think is just a candidate. And also, I feel like it's less interesting for you and me as a content perspective. So for me, that's what I'm afraid of, is this is Biden's half-hearted dropping out of the race, but I'm not really endorsing. Okay, I'll endorse later on Twitter. All of that is step one in a 2 or 3 step conversation that ends up with Kamala as president, which I think that was the absolute worst case scenario. That said, I think your point is very important, that there's a good chance that the right, we're going to blow our wad on Kamala Oppo, which we've got some. I've got a ton, relatively
There's a lot
speaking.
of wad to blow, Alex. There's a lot of wad to blow there.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And that imagery is just so profound given the circumstances. And it is, and we do that over the next month. And then they announce yet again it's someone else. It's not really her. This is totally plausible. And if anyone thinks this thing is a done deal, that it's her, you're completely missing what's going on in American politics right now. So I'm not telling you I know who it's going to be. You definitely will be getting a gourmet popcorn tin for me. If it is Newsom, you've earned at least that. But whoever it is, this very well could be a multi-step process where we spend a lot of time on Harris and then they move the goalpost yet again. It's Lucy with the football pulling away from Charlie Brown. We can't get fooled again.
Yeah. Well, so the way that I think it's all going to go down as well is they need something to say that, you know, they're still upholding democracy, because what they did here is a coup. The real insurrection happened yesterday, not January 6th. So they need something on the Democrat side to say that they still respect democracy. So to me, that's their workaround of Kamala. Instead of saying we're going to anoint and appoint her, you know, obviously they have to give her a go at it and watch her fail. But I think that the way that they get around that and the way that they get around Kamala and the DEI of everything is like, no, she still needs to compete for this. And we all know how she's going to compete for this. And I will say the only caveat to my prediction of Gavin Newsom is that if he looks at things and he thinks that it's so bad that he couldn't possibly win in November, he would want to save himself for 2028. I still think that he's narcissistic enough. And if he's got the Democrat machine behind him, I still think that he thinks that it's possible. And to me, the players to watch here aren't even so much Barack Obama. It's Nancy friggin' Pelosi, because she is the smartest Democrat to ever live of all time. So people think it's Barack. I don't think it's Barack. I think it's Nancy. And I think who Nancy appoints, who Nancy puts her golden glove on, that's the person that's going to be the nominee. And as we know, there is not a big distance from Nancy and Gavin Newsom. They might even be related in some fashion, which is still kind of a long fashion that we haven't really dug into to verify. But I do think what Nancy says goes. So I'm wondering as well, though, that if we do have a President Harris, you think that that would be harder to beat? I don't know. I think maybe then they could say, like, she got her chance. Like, she got a couple months. And they can still make it historic. So maybe that's better. I don't know, as much as it pains me.
It could be. Well, we're so far out of the realm of, there's no models for this. We don't have any historical things we can look back on and predict how this is all going to play out, which I just think is totally delish running a website, because I'm going to air every viewpoint that's out there the same way. Even though personally, I thought Joe would stick it out, I aired every interesting take that someone had saying he was going to leave, because it was, who's to know with a guy who's deteriorating like that before our eyes? I mean, I had my best guess, but of course there was a mountain of evidence that he wasn't going to make it. And so this is going to be the same thing. You see right now the betting markets, they all think it's Harris for sure. I have absolutely no idea if it's Harris for sure. And I think that when you look at the way they were able to campaign on, we are the saviors of democracy, we're the people who defend democracy, after rigging the 2016 primary for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders, after rigging the 2024 primary for Joe Biden, and then they push him off. If you don't think they're willing to go back on their purported DEI value system, of course they are. Of course they're capable of doing that. And anyone who thinks that they can't, again, is not paying attention. And I think your audience gets this. What is also remarkable, though, Tommy, is the Democrat voters' ability to take the crap sandwich and just to chow down on it. Like, they are being completely worked and manipulated by the donor class, by the elite of that party. And I predict they're going to go along with whoever they're force-fed joyfully and gleefully, which also means it's going to be Republicans. It's incumbent on us to we got our work cut out for us between now and November. Now, Joe was the worst candidate in the history of candidates, as far as I could tell, as a semi-professional presidential historian. He's the worst candidate imaginable. And for him to go, whoever they replace him with is going to be better. So we're going to have to dust off our toolkit here.
Yeah, no, you're right. The people that are celebrating this on the Republican side, like, oh, this is going to be such a slam dunk for us. I've been warning about it since I predicted that Joe wasn't going to be the nominee. Like, it's not going to be. I don't care who they put up. It's going to be difficult. Don't forget, the Democrats have mass mail-in voting. Wisconsin, we just had that decision about the ballot drop boxes. Like they're so far ahead of the game that it's going to be hard regardless. I don't care. But I want to talk about the Trump side of this as well. So people are talking about Democrat voters being disenfranchised. I talked about this morning on Fox and Friends, but let's talk about how unfair this is to the Trump campaign, because they've
100%.
spent millions of dollars campaigning against Joe Biden, and they've spent all their time campaigning against Joe Biden with the understanding that maybe he wouldn't be the nominee. But now they're expected to campaign for however long, not even knowing who they're running against. Like, in what realm is this democracy when the former president, Donald Trump, and J.D. Vance don't even know who their opponents are? Let's talk about how they're going to navigate that one.
Yeah, and I think they're suing now, I think is the latest, to get some of the campaign funds back because they were targeting Joe Biden. One thing that I think the right has internalized pretty well, and I think this helps Trump's positioning over the last decade or so, is really leftists are interchangeable. It's one of my personal favorite talking points. They all end up governing the same. So I think we can run against the Joe Biden policies. Easier, of course, if it's Kamala Harris. A little more complicated if you're getting a governor, because then you got to go through their whole history. That takes time to familiarize the public with that. But overall, we're running against the left. We're running against the open borders. We're running against the soft on crime DEAs. We're running against the high taxes, high inflation, all that stuff. So all the forever wars. Trump's going to be very well positioned against most of the candidates in that case. So it's going to be a similar playbook. That said, it's wildly unfair and anti-democratic that they're expecting the whole American public just to go along with, we're going to put up a mystery candidate like it's some sort of a child's game. We're going to pick someone out of a question mark box at the end of the middle of the fall when the election's coming up a couple of months away. It's unbelievable subversion of democracy that's happening, and they should get called out, and the Trump campaign should turn over every stone to try to object and to make clear what's happening.
Yeah, here's what I'm worried about, and they've already started to do it, and I think it's so phony and it's such BS, but they're going to do it. We knew they were going to do it. They're going to talk about how much energy they have on their side now, and whoever they put up is going to be younger than Trump. So now they're trying to pull out all the stops of like, look, now you guys have the old candidate, and we know inevitably are going to have the younger candidate unless they put up Bernie Sanders, for God's sake. Now they're trying to use that like, oh, now we've got the young, energized side, which is such a load of BS. It's so ridiculous, but they're going to do it, and I'm worried about that, and I'm worried about it more so with Gavin Newsom, but I'm even worried about it a little bit with Kamala, that the other side is going to be energized to some extent. And I said it before, and I'll say it again, and people are going to get mad at me for saying it, but if you are a woman and you are willing to vote for Kamala Harris just because she's a woman, you are the dumbest women amongst us. You are seriously dumb as rocks. You're dumber than Kamala if you'd vote for someone just because they're a woman. But you know that's going to happen. It's going to be like history on the ballot again, and I'm wondering if you think that it's going to work.
Yeah, I think that they're going to try it. They're going to try something like that. It hasn't. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they put Gretchen Whitmer on the ticket with her, and they make it an all-woman ticket.
You really think they'd be that dumb, Alex? Do you really think that men in America on the left or the right, and the men that are now flocking to Donald Trump, do you really think that that men in America are going to be like, let's let two women who relatively have very little experience lead our country? You think they would be that dumb to go full DEI?
I would tell you a week ago, absolutely not. But after seeing what's gone on over the last week, how they were able to basically bully Biden out, and how they are doing, at least, it might be phony, but they're at least giving this veneer of a cohesiveness behind Harris. It just reminds me that they could do anything, whatever they're going to look at the numbers, and they're going to have really sophisticated data, and they're going to go with whoever they think gives them the best chance to win as a party. They're going to operate as a party unit. And if you don't think that they couldn't eat up some clock news cycle wise, instead of talking about the inflation, the open border, and China eating our lunch, all the stuff we want to talk about, if they want to talk about how Donald Trump got as a felon because of paying hush money to Stormy Daniels or whatever, and now or you go with two women, you go with the P-word tape guy or two women, they could burn up a lot of clock on that. Now, I honestly don't think that's what they're going to do, but I'm not dismissing anything now. It's why would you? It's so crazy, the possibilities. We should explore them all.
Well, I said it in my open, but I really don't think that Democrats run DEI. I think they appoint it. I don't think they put it on the ballot. They need to win Rust Belt states. And I'm sorry, as someone who comes from the Midwest, I don't think folks in the Midwest look at Kamala Harris and go like, she gets me, or she gets working class Americans. I don't think she can even feign that she gets them because she doesn't even try. Now, the same could be said, in all fairness, about Gavin Newsom being a California Democrat, but at least he can pretend as such. Kamala is not that good of an actress. She cannot even feign it. Like I said, she's sitting there last week on Friday, probably knowing going into the weekend that all eyes are on her, and she goes to an ice cream shop with Tyra Banks. So to me, she's not sophisticated, and they've tried to revamp her so many times at this point. Last thing I do want to ask you about this,
Sure.
and kind of going along with the same discussion, is now all we're going to hear moving forward is that there are untouchables with Kamala Harris that you can't discuss because it's beyond the pale, a bridge too far, a lot that I'm not even going to discuss, but I'm just going to go with the racist and the sexist thing. Do you think that Republicans and Republicans' campaign efforts are going to be stifled because of that? Or do you think that Republicans just need to go full bore oppo on Kamala Harris?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's nothing from my research into her, and I have a long chapter on her in Breaking Biden, and I have more research that didn't make it in the final copy that I will try to release on Breitbart. I don't think any of it strikes me as something that's going to be off limits. I think the trickiest one to talk about is she literally did sleep her way to the top, which is, it's real. It's not, I'm not attacking them. I'm not attacking her for doing it. You can judge at home, but she did.
Well,
I mean,
Willie Brown is the one that acknowledged it. So,
yeah, Willie Brown's acknowledged it.
So that's the problem here is like, I understand. And I understand as a woman, I have sensitivity to it. I didn't always, but I do now. I have sensitivity to people being like, oh, you did this to the top. It bothers me when people do that to women because I don't think it's always fair. But I do think that it's something that needs to be discussed because it's not some rumor. It's verifiable that, according to him, that it happened. So I think that there needs to be a discussion. I don't think that needs to be like the highlight of the discussion on Kamala Harris. But I do think that it still needs to be mentioned, especially if they're going after Donald Trump for paying off a porn star. Like, all is fair in love and war. So I think it's part of the discussion on Kamala. Maybe a small part, but a part.
I think so. For me, I want to go on the issues. I want to talk about the issues more. I want to talk about her flip-flops, and I want to talk about how she is almost no signature piece of legislation. She's done almost nothing. I mean, all she's done is get elected. She's good at getting elected. That's aside from in the Democrat primary where she can get a single delegate, even though she campaigned for 11 months and raised $50 million, still couldn't get one delegate. Or maybe it was 100 million. I gotta get that data fresh, but she wasted all that money and didn't get a single delegate. So I want to talk about the fact that she's not a competent leader, that she's not particularly bright. She doesn't have good values. But will the character stuff come up? Yeah, sure, it'll come up. And I don't think we should be afraid of that. I think we should say everything at this point. And I just think that the Democrat Party is they can do a lot better than her, and they might figure that out, and they might move on. And if it is her, I think you're probably touching on what I think could happen for the VP, which is probably a white guy from the middle of the country. Josh Shapiro, Andy Bashir come up. Shapiro's Jewish. A lot of the Democrat base is pro-Hamas now, so that would be complicated there, but the governor of Pennsylvania. But I think that's probably where they're going to look if she stays there. But I think it is not at all impossible that your scenario comes true. And Newsom's there. I think they care about winning more than they care about DEI by a mile. So if they run the numbers and she can't win, she will be gone by the convention.
Yeah. Well, they're going to feign some kind of a competition. So we'll just wait and see. I'm still holding on to my predictions. But, I mean, I think one thing is for sure for people that do what we do is that you really can't sleep anymore because something crazy happens every moment of every day. And we had a Secret Service hearing today that was supposed to be kind of like the hallmark of the week. And that's taking a huge backseat to the fact that we've got a presidential candidate dropping out and maybe at some point even resigning from his current position. So, we can't sleep anymore, but this is going to be an exciting few months. And I always appreciate you coming on to discuss it with me. And I hope to talk to you soon. And I hoping that we have maybe even a small pamphlet of Breaking Kamala, because we would all love to read it.
Thank you. That means a lot. And this is really fun. And look, you got to make bold, declarative predictions in this business. And I got no regrets. And you get a hearty congratulations, Tomi. And I'll be happy to eat crow on your show if I get another one wrong anytime.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you soon. Maybe the next breaking news incident. I'll talk to you soon, Alex.
Bye, Tomi.
All right, folks. Well, speaking of that, with all the breaking news, let's not forget the director of the Secret Service still needs to face the music. She didn't at all today, but it's time for final thoughts.
The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency. We are fully cooperating with ongoing investigations. We must learn what happened, and I will move heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again.
Well, your mission was to never let it happen in the first place. But folks, have you ever seen such a whiny and incompetent institution as the federal government under Joe Biden or whoever controls Joe Biden? Because I don't think so. Case in point, the United States Secret Service, led up by that woman, Kim Cheadle, reportedly by the request of fake Dr. Jill Biden. We've heard it all. Excuse after excuse. The $3.1 billion budget isn't enough. The roof was too slopey. Whine, whine, whine. It's a joke. And so is Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle.
One of the things that you said, I believe, in an interview, that there wasn't an agent on the roof because it was a sloped roof. Is that normal? And do you fear that immediately creates an opportunity for future would-be assassins to look for a slanted roof? I mean, this is a huge question that every American has. Why wasn't a Secret Service agent on the roof? And there have been reports that agents were supposed to be on the roof, but it was hot that day and they didn't want to be on the roof. Can you answer any of those questions, Director?
So I appreciate you asking me that question, Chairman. I should have been more clear in my answer when I spoke about where we placed personnel in that interview. What I can tell you is that there was a plan in place to provide overwatch, and we are still looking into responsibilities and who was going to provide overwatch. But the Secret Service in general, not speaking specifically to this incident, when we are providing overwatch, whether that be through counter snipers or other technology, prefer to have sterile rooftops.
Did the Secret Service use any drones for surveillance that day?
So again, I'm not going to get into specifics of that day in itself.
So if you watched that hearing this morning, as I did, almost in its entirety, you'll know that Kim Cheadle really didn't answer anything, and she's waiting for the investigation to conclude on pretty much everything. So her being there was a giant waste of her time and ours. But Kim Cheadle, prior to leading an agency tasked with protecting the most important and threatened human beings on planet Earth, was in charge of protecting PepsiCo, a beverage company, which maybe wouldn't matter so much if not for the colossal and inexcusable failure of the security operation in Butler, PA a week ago. You know, the one where a former and likely future president was shot and almost killed. Since then, the government bureaucrats and the Secret Service, Homeland Security, and the Biden administration have been doing the most to inspire our confidence in their capabilities. Just kidding. Quite the opposite, actually. In fact, it feels like they're doing all they can to inspire conspiracy theories, given the changing narratives, the lack of transparency, and giant absence of any accountability. Still, if you so much as question any of the BS, you're scolded. The Secret Service and the entire government-run security apparatus should be profusely apologizing to the American people and Donald Trump, and they should all be sitting with their tails between their legs with no jobs. But no, we get this instead, a lecture, a DEI lecture on the capabilities of female law enforcement officers. I will point out that this entire administration only cares to stand up for women when they royally F up, but not for women's sports and women's spaces. But that's par for the course. Here's the deal. Women are great. I love women. I'm a woman. I have female friends in law enforcement, and I commend them. But fact is, though, a woman that's almost a foot shorter than her protectee shouldn't be protecting that protectee, and a woman who can't holster their weapon shouldn't be given any weapons. The military, security, and law enforcement positions should not be awarded based on quotas or feelings. Save your social experiments for far less mission-critical positions like Starbucks or the WNBA. Kim Sheetal should not have a job right now. I mean, seriously, can you imagine if Donald Trump were president and his Secret Service director presided over Joe or Barack being shot and nearly killed? You think Trump would leave her at that post? No. No private company would operate or be allowed to operate like the federal government, where accountability, like common sense, is in short supply. Those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in live again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you'll never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.